Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Drinking with Dana. Couple things before we get started. First of all, happy you're all watching, happy you're all here with me today. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you very much. If you're watching here live here on Twitch, thank you as well. That's actually one thing I want to talk about before we get going today, is that I up to 53 followers on Twitch. Thank you all, each and every one of you. I very much appreciate it, and I thank all of my followers on YouTube as well. So 50 followers on Twitch is a big deal, and so this is what that means. The way Twitch works, and I apologize, this is a little bit inside baseball, but I want to let folks know why I've been pressing this so hard. But what Twitch does is they have various tiers of broadcasters, and the first one, which is where I am, is basically the peon level, where you get to stream and a couple other things, and that's about it. Which is fine, which is great. We've been enjoying it. We've been having a good time. But if we can get up to the next level, which is affiliate, then you get to do stuff like have your recordings on Twitch for a while, and have custom emotes, and have be able to accept bits as tips, and do hype trains and all that stuff. And basically, it's a whole range of other stuff you get to be able to do at that upper level. Now, the way they let you do that is they have 4 achievements that you have to get before that's unlocked. The first one is to get to 50 followers, so yay! The second one is to have an average of 3 or more viewers for all the time you're streaming, and we're right there. We're right at 3 viewers right now. I would like to have more, but that's we've made that one. So thank you all for watching my streams. I really appreciate it. The other 2 though are tricky. You have to have 8 hours of content streamed, and you have to stream on 7 separate days. And the thing is, you have to do both of those within a month. Now, I do 2 roughly hour-and-a-half long streams basically 1 hour-and-a-half long stream every 2 weeks. So even if we hit a month that had 5 Wednesdays in it, I would get 4.5 hours of content and only be streaming 3 days a week. So I have some nefarious plans that I'm thinking about doing, and I'd love to hear your opinions on them. Basically, I'm thinking that either for Halloween or Christmas, probably Halloween actually, and not actually at Halloween, like a week before then, I'm going to do a series of very short streams, just like make 1 drink or make 1 snack, but I'll do it every day for a full week. And then at the end of that week, I'm thinking about doing a charity stream where I make a big fancy dinner, or I make a few batches of cookies. But if I do it at Christmas, it'll be me making Christmas cookies all day. And I'm trying to think of things to add into that. So if you have any ideas, if you have any thoughts about this, if it's something you'd like to see, if it's something that you would actually watch and tune in for, because I have to have at least 3 viewers with me all day, then let me know in the comments. Let me know in chat if you're out there. And I'd love to hear what everyone has to think about that. Because otherwise, I'm not sure I can get up to affiliate level, and I would, I'd like to have the rank, if not, even if I never end up using stuff, with tips and with my Ko-Fi and all that. I appreciate them. I really do. They help me buy more booze so I can make more of these shows, but they're never required, and never feel like you have to contribute that way. But I appreciate it when everyone does. So, all right, that out of the way, I'm going to start on our first drink. And it is It is the Fireside 75. So the Fireside 75 is originally from a bar called Cane and Table down in New Orleans, and it's a riff on the French 75. A French 75 is a classic drink. Excuse me. A classic drink goes all the way back to World War One, because this combination of ingredients was said to have the same kick as the French 75 millimeter field gun. So that's what it feels like when you take a swig of this, in theory. The French 75 itself was created at the New York Bar in Paris in 1915 by Harry Macalone. Although there was a man named Robert Vermeer who published this and did credit Harry Macalone. And Vermeer's version was a lot closer to what we think of as a French 75. So it's a French 75 itself is just you take gin, sugar, and lemon juice, shake them, pour them into a glass, and then top it up with champagne. This is a little more complex and a little more interesting and a little warmer for the winter time or the autumn. And I know that folks out there, especially down in California, it's doesn't really feel like it's turned to autumn yet, but it has up here in Seattle. There's that certain feel in the air. You're starting to smell a little bit of wood smoke, and the nights are a little chillier and that sort of thing. But so my thoughts have been turning to more autumnal drinks, and this is one of my favorites. One other note. You'll see in the recipe there, it calls for cinnamon syrup. So the cinnamon syrup that they use in the recipe that I got, and I got the recipe off of a website called Imbibe. The recipe they use is just, you make a 1-to-1 simple syrup, but you basically take your cup of water, boil a cinnamon stick in it for about 10 minutes, then top it up so you still have a cup of water, then add a cup of sugar to that, boil it until the sugar dissolves, strain out the cinnamon stick, and that's your cinnamon syrup. I'm lazy, so I'm using Torani's cinnamon syrup, and I think it works just fine. It's certainly a lot easier, and it is shelf stable, so it will last for a good long time. And apparently I did not clean some of the sugar off that. Anyway, so you can do it either way. Try it both ways and let me know what you think. Let's see. It's a Winter Nicole. It says, "Woo, fall! Can we come up from 100+ degree California?" Yes, everyone's welcome in Washington. Everyone's welcome in Seattle. It was really hot today. It got up to 80 up here. It was terrible. We had to turn on the air conditioning for a few minutes. But it is starting to really feel like fall up here. So yes, come on up. All right, well, let's get started on this. So start off with a 1/2 ounce of lemon juice. And there were 2 stickers on that lemon, because I know I got the first one off. Anyway, we're going to use our trick of filtering out the seeds from the lemon here. I'm just going to hand squeeze this because it's only 1/2 ounce of lemon juice. And a little bit more. And as always use fresh squeezed juices, citrus when you can. I know it's not an option for everyone, but if you can, it makes a big difference. Fresh lemon juice, fresh lime juice whenever you need them. It's pretty much a requirement in my book. Alright, so now a 1/2 ounce of cinnamon syrup. This is kind of nice. It's a equal parts drink. I had a theory for about half an hour today that this was also not just a riff on the French 75, but also a riff on a Final Word cocktail, which is another drink I'm going to get to, by the way, one of my favorites. But because a final word is basically 4 ingredients, equal parts, and you shake them together, and I was like, okay, so it has gin in it, and this has gin in it, so great. And then maraschino, well, that's kind of like the cinnamon syrup, and that's instead of lime juice, it's lemon juice, so that works. And then I can't remember. It's got brandy instead of something else, and that's where it all kind of fell apart. Anyway, so speaking of brandy, half ounce of brandy is where we left off here. Alright. There we go. Oh, It's Winter Nicole says they had 116 in Sacramento yesterday. And you have all of my sympathies. You should, wow, that is a lot. Hopefully you had air conditioning for that, because I don't think it's livable otherwise. At least not for my delicate self. I am a dainty and delicate flower, as you can no doubt tell. Alright, and this is a ½ ounce of gin that I'm adding. So, ½ ounce of lemon juice, ½ ounce of cinnamon syrup, ½ ounce of brandy, ½ ounce of gin, and we are just going to shake all of that up. Just a second here, I'm going to grab some ice. It's going to be loud in a sec. Alright, so It's Winter Nicole says that thankfully, yes, she did have the air conditioning, and they just turned it on and didn't go anywhere all day, which is, I think, the optimal solution to that. Alright, so that's good and shaken, nice and cold, and we're just going to pour this in here. And you may be saying, that it's only barely filling this up. Where's the rest of the drink? Well, the rest of the drink is champagne. Now, I like to get these little bottles of Cook's champagne. Other brands are available. But they're 187 milliliters. It's basically a little more than a glass of champagne. And they come in 4 packs for about, well, they were on sale today for like $7 for a 4-pack. I just buy them, keep them in the fridge, and that way if I'm making a drink like this, I don't have to open an entire bottle of champagne. And this is, going to use maybe a quarter of this little tiny thing. So the rest I'll probably finish up tonight with, some orange juice or something else for mimosas. So anyway, but we're just going to top this up here. But yeah, these little bottles of champagne, nice. It means you always have champagne on hand and you don't have to waste a bottle. I highly recommend it. That's my homemaker tip for the day. So we topped up our cocktail. There we have it. Let me bring this in. See if I can get the camera working today. And does it work? Yes, it actually works. So there it is. You can see I actually even put a flashlight there, so it's lit and everything. Just a nice pale yellow color. You can see on the top it does have some effervescence to it from the champagne. And I should say California sparkling wine, because it's only champagne if it comes from the Champagne region of France. That is the root of that joke, in case you're wondering. Anyway, so here, let me go back and give it a little taste and let you know how it is. This is my first one of the year, so I have fresh taste buds on it. I'm sorry, I'm just going to revel in that for a second. So, I'm going to take another sip and then actually tell you what it tastes like, because right now that just tasted really good. All right. So, the first taste you get is the citrus there, sort of the sweet and sour almost, but then almost immediately the cinnamon kicks in and gives it a really interesting flavor. Um, the brandy and the gin, actually the gin itself is very muted. You get a little bit of that brandy flavor to it, not necessarily a lot of alcohol to it, and you do get a little bit of the dry champagne flavor. Because the champagne I'm using is a brut champagne. You don't want to use like a Spumante or any sweet champagnes, and again, sparkling wines. So I forget all the different names for sweet sparkling wines. But look for a brut or similar. You don't need like an extra brut or anything like that. Just, this is a nice, dry, sparkling wine, and it goes really well with the sweet, because you're adding sweetness from the cinnamon syrup, and it really enough to cancel out any astringence or tartness from the lemon juice. It's Winter Nicole salutes my flashlight. Yes, thank you. I nothing but the finest for my wonderful set here, because it's not like this is just kind of my kitchen. This is the high production value. There are tons and tons of staffers running around behind the scenes right now, just scurrying to get out of the shot. And it's got that nice long sort of sweet tart cinnamon finish to it. Not a ton of evolution. There's a little bit. I mean, it's sort of, you get more of the champagne, the sparkling wine flavors at the end, but yeah, it's just a really nice, refreshing drink that still feels like a fall drink. It still feels. It still has that warm cinnamon spice flavor, but it's more like today. It's sort of the last days of summer, going into fall, where you're still want a little bit of something to cool you off, but you want something a little I don't know, a little cinnamony, a little pumpkin spice, that kind of thing. So yeah, I really love this drink. I think I originally had it at a place called, what is it? It's up at the Willows Lodge, and it's their little lounge there. I think it's actually called the Fireside Lounge. And so I thought they had invented it first, but apparently it's from Cane and, well, at least this recipe is from Cane and Table down in New Orleans. So credit to them. Let's see, anything else I want to say about this, or shall we go on? Any questions about this? Winter Nicole, you got any? Yeah, Winter Nicole says it sounds like a great fall drink, and it really is. I really enjoy this. I mean, to be honest, I'll drink them all year long, but it really feels like a fall drink, or maybe even a winter drink on the right evening. This was actually one of my mom and dad's favorite drinks, so it's one of the ones I wanted to bring out. I have another one that was one of my mom's favorite drinks, and I thought about doing it this episode, but I did a almost tiki drink last time, and I want to have a moratorium on tiki drinks until I do the full lecture on them, and it is literally called a tiki rum. So it's served at at Trader Sam's in the Disneyland Hotel. So I couldn't really even argue that that's not a tiki drink. I may do it anyway, just because I do love it, and it's got a great story behind it, and stuff. But we'll see. All right. Well, enough of that. Let's get on to the Chandon Spread. Ooh, and I did forget one thing that I was supposed to get out for that, but let me set all this off to the side for now. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to let me know. But in the meantime, throw these things away. And now we get out all of this. All right, I should move to the next thing here. All right, so Chandon Spread. What is it? What is a Chandon, and where do they live, and what do they eat? No, a Chandon Spread is from the Chandon Winery. Got a champagne theme going on so far, which I'm going to crush with the last one, by which I mean not do it at all. So the Chandon Winery is in Napa, California, and when I was younger, my folks always used to love to go down to Napa to go wine tasting. And when I turned 16, I was their designated driver for a while. And by that point, I'd been drinking wine long before I turned 21. Don't tell anyone. But so I would always enjoy stuff. When I turned 21, then all of a sudden I could taste too, and that was great. And eventually I actually lived in Napa for a year and worked at Stag's Leap Winery up in their lab. And that was their favorite time because they used my discount at all the other wineries. Anyway, so back to this. Yes, so at Chandon, they had one of the better tasting rooms, and you would go up and you'd sit down, and they would bring you out a dish of this spread with slices of baguette. And then if you were members of their certain club, they would also bring you out a glass of champagne to drink while you decided what champagne you wanted to order. So it was always a real special part of our trips down there, and I always really liked it. One day my mom just asked for the recipe and they gave it to her, and it's been something both she and I, she made up until she passed away, and it's something I made for just about every party. It is a great spread. So let me start off with it. Let me actually change to where I have the recipe. So the recipe I have on screen there is the recipe as we got it from Chandon. So it has it in parts, because assuming they make giant batches of this. I make batches, so here. This is 8 ounces of cream cheese, and so I base everything around that. And it's a good size for a party. It'll last a good long time. You don't want to make any more of it. Well, depending on how many people you have in the house. For just the two of us, any more and we'll start getting tired of it, and then mold will start growing on it because blue cheese does have mold built in. But it'll last in the fridge for about a week, and so this is a good amount for us. There have been times where I knew I was going to have a huge party or something where I'll make a double batch, just so I have some left afterwards to eat with the leftovers. But in general, just so 8 ounces of cream cheese, 1.6 ounces of blue cheese, and I'll be getting my scale out in a minute to measure that. I have about 15 chives written down, which is I think what I picked today. They're of various sizes, and then usually I just use as much parsley as is still live in my garden, but this year it's actually doing really well, so it's this much parsley. If that helps at all. This is one of those recipes where you can adjust it a little bit to taste. So it's basically chives and parsley to taste. for walnuts, I think I figured out it was about 3 walnuts for this size batch. So if you want to jot those numbers down, great. Otherwise, that general, 5 parts of this to 1 part of that will get you where you need to go. Just have your calculator handy. All right, so let me actually get to work. And all I'm going to do is take a knife and cut this up into nice big pieces. Here, let me move over so I actually have this on camera. So there we go. So yeah, I'm just gonna, here. And I use a Cuisinart for this. In theory, you could use a blender, I suppose, or not a blender, a mixer, a stand mixer. But you want to get your, it's okay, I just washed that. You want to get your cream cheese nice and warmed up to room temperature. This is pretty much still, fresh out of the refrigerator, so it's a little harder than I would like it for a blender. I don't think it would mix up as much, or it may take longer to mix up, because the mixing will get it up to room temperature as well. All right. So that is our cream cheese. All the last little bits off there. And now the blue cheese. So I'm getting out my scale here. And I'm just going to measure it onto the cream cheese wrapper because they're all going to the same place. I'm using a point raised blue cheese because that's what they had at the grocery store that looked good. Just about any blue cheese will do, but like I say, you use like 1.6 ounces, and this small wedge here is a 5-ounce wedge, so you're going to have a lot left over. So make sure it's something you want to eat. Actually, or you can make blue cheese chips with it, which I will show you on another stream coming soon. That's going to be one of my, let's see, I don't think you were here, Winter, Nicole, for the update on what's going on with the stream, but I'm thinking about doing basically a bunch of short one recipe segments, so I can meet one of the requirements for getting to affiliate status. And I think one of those might be blue cheese chips because it is dead simple. So tune in for that. Alright, so I put this on ounces and cut, let's see, a little bit more than that. So in addition to having something that's 1.6. Alright, well, oh, because that's underneath it. Here, let me get the last little bit. And again, if it doesn't taste strongly enough, because there are different blue cheeses with different flavors to them. Some are stronger, some are less strong. I'll show you when you want to taste it just to see how it's gonna be. But in the meantime, like I say, this much is about, I can never do that. Alright, this is about 1.6 ounces of blue cheese. So that I'm going to kind of break up a little bit in here. And I was trying to remember if I prefer a creamier blue or if it actually matters. And I don't think it actually matters because the blue cheese is going to get pretty well munched up. I think the reason I usually prefer a creamier blue cheese is because, like I said, I'm going to have some afterwards, and oh, that is good blue cheese though. So, yes. Anyway, so yes, I'm going to have it afterwards, so I want something that I like, and I like creamier blue cheese. There we go. Alright. Let's see. The Fireside 75 goes well with blue cheese. Alright, So I'm going to wait a minute on the parsley and chives, and I'm going to instead add in my walnuts. And I'm going to try and find 3 actual walnuts here. I got the walnut halves and pieces. And I think by 3 walnuts, I mean 3 walnut halves. But I can, again, I'm going to taste it in a minute just to see what I think. So, yeah. So that's 3 walnut halves, just kind of crumbled up in there. And now I'm going to let this go for a bit. And the reason I'm doing this before I add the chives and parsley is because we want to make sure that the walnuts are really, really pulverized in there, and the cream cheese and blue cheese are really well combined. So I'm going to turn this on now. And now's when I realize I forgot my scraper for this, so let me get that out. There it is. Oh, and I'm going to need my scissors in a minute, so here. Let's see, as long as I'm over here. I'm glad you think they sound like a good idea. So when It's Winter Nicole says, shorts sound fun. Yeah, I think it's the kind of thing where if anyone actually tunes in, because they're going to be like 5 minutes long, probably. But if anyone tunes in, that's great. But they'll all be up on YouTube, which again, all my past content is up on YouTube if you want to check it out. Let's see if anyone else is in the audience lurking there. Yes. 420F11. There's that 1C. 1TC001. Hi. I'm sorry I butchered your name, but welcome, and I'm glad you're here. And let me go back. There we go. Okay. All right. So, as usual, I am easily distracted, especially by bright, shiny objects. Alright, so just pulling that away from the wall a little bit. It looks actually pretty well incorporated. Well, I'm going to let it go for just a little bit longer to make sure all of the... Well, no, actually I think the walnuts are pretty good there. So, what I'm going to do, I've washed the parsley earlier, so I'm just going to kind of even these up so I can cut them all at once, and just kind of roughly use my scissors to chop this up and get it in there. Except I'm getting little bits fleeing themselves, trying not to get where I want them to be. And like I say, you want kind of pieces of the herbs. You can overdo it. I've actually had some where I don't know what was going on, if I added just too much, too many chives rather, or I over blended it or what, but I ended up with basically a green version of this, which is not the color it normally is. Fortunately, no one said anything at the time, but alright, so taking my chives. I can't remember if I told this little trick on the other stream where I use these. I think it was the deviled egg stream. But what you want to do with chives, if you're using scissors on them, just grab them like this, cut them in half, fold it over, drop one of them, and then you have you have an even cutting thing here, and also, unless they keep falling out, and then also it's half as much that you have to cut up. So we're just going to trim these in here into nice little pieces. And again, I use I use probably more chives than I should. You use a few less if you want, because you don't want the chives to overwhelm it. Matter of fact, I'm not going to use this last little bit. I'm going to wait and see how it tastes, and then I can always add more in. So, just let that run for a second, and scrape the sides. Make sure everything gets in there. Alright. And let it run just a little bit longer. A little bit on the edge of the lid there. Alright, and that is probably good. Now is when we want to taste it, see how it is. Let me grab a little spoon for that. And I think you could use a little bit more of the chives. The blue cheese has an interesting flavor here that I am. Alright. This is also usually where I take some into my wife and see what she thinks. But maybe it's because I actually had enough parsley to do that part right, and that's why it tastes a little. Or maybe it's a chunk of something. Alright, so now we just decant it. Basically use your spatula to scrape it all into a dish. I've got these little dishes, which I'll tell you about in a minute. So here, let me. Just scrape it in, and you want to push it down to the bottom so it fills up all the available space so you don't get air bubbles in there. And if you have a sort of rectangular one like this, you can sort of fill it at one end and then push it down to fill it in as you add more. That's one of the reasons why I like these little containers. Take out the blade here so I don't screw anything up, cut anything or like that. Okay. And obviously you don't have to have any sort of fancy container for it. You can just put it in a bowl or whatever you want. You know, just a mound on a plate doesn't quite work, but a bowl would be fine. Any kind of bowl you've got, and just something to serve it up with. Which, again, I forgot to grab. You want to grab every last bit of this stuff because it is really good. And just kind of smooth out, if you're doing something like this, just smooth out the top, get everything you want. Don't really worry about, you know, having it all on the edges and all that. That's because then what you can do, you kind of smooth out and here. Because what you can do is then just take a bit of paper towel and then just run that around the edge to scrape off all the bits that you don't want, and the edges will be nice and clean. And if you're doing this before your event, oh, that's something I should say. You can actually make this up to, I would say, you can make this the night before any event that you want to serve it at, but I wouldn't do it too much longer than that because the longer you do it before you serve it, the more time you're cutting off that it'll be good later on. So, you know, if it's got about a week that it's going to be good, so if you make it 2 days ahead of time, that means it's going to be good 5 days after the party. Let's see. I was going to say something else. Anyway, this is what it looks like. Just kind of white with some little flecks in it. I am going to grab some crackers, which I forgot to get out. Still here. No one's receiving me. Does that mean I don't exist? No, wait. Here I am. All right. So I'm just using regular. I guess they're called clubhouse crackers. You can use any kind of cracker, maybe not. Well, no, I guess they would work on saltines if you want. But if you're serving this at a party, just get some nice crackers or slice up some bits of baguette. Oh, how much? It's Winter Nicole is saying. Well, she says first. When I was talking about the green version of it, you just say, oh, no, it's the healthy version of it. And yes, that is exactly what you do. It's like, oh, no, it's got extra green in it. It's, it's a vegetable. And she also says, how much do you taste the walnuts? Well, let's get to that. Like I say, you can add more or less walnuts. You taste them, but they're kind of like, to use one from Greg from How to Drink's sayings, it's like a note. It's like a violin in the symphony. You just you just kind of get a flavor of it, but it's not. It doesn't taste like walnuts. It tastes like there's a flavor that, if you think about it hard, it's probably walnuts. Were I to be serving this, I would just stick one of these little serving spoons in it, or serving knives in it. I collect these things because they're just handy to have on hand. So just scoop some of it onto a cracker, like I say, or a slice of baguette or something like that. You can. I normally would stick this in the refrigerator for a little while for a couple of reasons. First, it will firm it up a little bit so that so that it looks nice when you have the knife just stuck in it. But you want to let it, actually, in retrospect, you probably want it back at room temperature a bit so it's a little more spreadable. But the other reason you want to let it sit for a little while is to let the flavors really meld together. You may notice this with some dips and that kind of thing, that if you make them immediate, it's like, oh, I can taste all the separate flavors, but after about an hour, it's like, oh, it tastes like one flavor that has all these components to it. And that's kind of what goes on here. Now this, you don't necessarily have to do that, but it doesn't hurt. But let me tell you what it tastes like. So, definitely I'm tasting the cracker for one thing, but I'm going to set that aside. Honestly, you don't taste that at first. What you taste is sort of a tanginess that's almost reminiscent of sour cream a little bit, because you're getting the tang from the blue cheese combined with the cream cheese, which cuts that tang and all the overpoweringness of blue cheese just down to a dull roar. Enough that it's sort of like if you got all the flavors of a hot chili without the heat. That's kind of the idea behind this, I think. So you really get that blue cheese flavor, but without it being like a hammer of blue cheese pounding on your taste buds. You do taste the herbs in it. They come a little bit later after that initial tang to it. if I can get it into my mouth without smearing my lipstick all over everything. Um, so yeah, the herbs come a little bit later. They come, and also like again the walnuts. They're just sort of notes that come with that tang. It's got a cohesive flavor even now. So yeah, I guess it probably doesn't even need to sit all that long. I do it just kind of out of habit, I guess. Also, usually because it's one of those nice things that you can make the day before the party, so you're not spending all day cooking. Um, yeah, this one's not as great to. Well, I guess you could take it to a party if you have, um, like a big plate of crackers with a dish of this in the center, or a plate of sliced bread with this in the center. This one is, I prefer to serve this at my own house, just so I can restock crackers if I need to, or slice up more bread or what have you. And because it is kind of a small dish, it's a small dish that packs a lot of flavor in it, though. And it's always been popular whenever I've served it. And it does go with the drink well. So I'm going to actually have another cracker's worth of that and wax poetically. Oh, I was going to tell you about the dish. So this dish, actually, I did not buy it. It was bought by my wife. Or actually, no, it wasn't even bought. I think she was at a White Elephant gift exchange at work one year, and they had a make your own s'mores kit, which you might be asking yourself, can't you just sort of make your own s'mores without a kit? Because this didn't, include any graham crackers or chocolate or marshmallows. What it was sort of a lazy Susan with 4 of these little dishes to put your graham crackers in, or 1 for graham crackers, 1 for marshmallows, 1 for your chocolate, and 1 for something else, I presume. And it had in the center basically a candle that you were supposed to toast your marshmallows over. It might have been an oil lamp, but I think it was a candle. And we never used any of that. Even the Lazy Susan, I think we didn't have room to store, so we got rid of it. But these little dishes are amazing. They're great. I use them all the time. So, but yeah, it was one of those things where it's like, you don't actually need this to do what you want to do, so, but I think someone had been gifted it and they were re-gifting it in the White Elephant party, so. Anyway, what else do I have to say on that topic? Oh, well, for one thing, this is a piece of advice I want to give to non-homemakers out there. If you know someone who, and all you know about them is that they like to cook or they like to bartender, It's Winter Nicole says, small dishes and bowls are a staple. Yes, especially if you throw parties or have people over all the time, having a wide variety of small dishes and just little things to pour stuff into it's a requirement. But anyway, if you know someone and all you know about them is that they like to cook or they like to make drinks or something like that, do not buy them equipment for their kitchen or for their bar or anything like that. And I'm going to tell you why. And I know that sounds rude, but odds are they actually already have the equipment that they need, or if they do need some equipment, it's probably something specific, and the odds of lucking into that one specific thing that they've been researching and all that is small. So I recommend highly, if you know someone into bartending, bring them a bottle of booze or an interesting bottle of bitters or something like that. If you know they like to cook, maybe an interesting cookbook, or something that you really like to cook. Just write them up the recipes for it. That is a huge thing. It's a little bit different. It's like maybe buy them the ingredients and then write up the recipe to go with it, and give them that. That's because that they can use. I cannot tell you, before I came out, all people knew about me was that I like to cook and make drinks, and people had their best interest in heart. Anyone, if you've given me a drink or a gift in the past, I love you. I appreciate what you did. You didn't know I wanted nice skirts and dresses. I don't blame you, but just think that I got a lot of interesting things in the past which have been regifted. Sorry. So I'm giving that out there as advice to all non-homemakers. Also, hello DJ Slave Zero. Thank you for showing up. I appreciate you being here. We're actually just about to finish things up and go on to our second drink. So let me get to that. I'm gonna clean up here a bit. What's up with you today? We've already heard about how blazingly hot it is in California, especially in Sacramento, which, like I say, I lived in Napa for a year, and so it was the first place I lived that wasn't in Washington, and I moved down there in the middle of a heat wave in May, which that was only the opening salvo, as it were. And then excuse me here, I dash out of here. So I moved to Napa in this heat wave in May, and it then did not rain at all until Halloween Day. And being someone who's born and raised in Washington State and up near Seattle, it drove me insane. I was like, when does the water fall from the sky? Is this a desert? And how are you growing grapes here? So, yeah, It's Winter Nicole says that May is a bad time for heat wave. Now, don't get me wrong, that is my recollection of it. It was probably just like, mid 80s, maybe up into the 90s, probably just standard California weather, but I was not prepared for it, and the little hotel that I stayed in until I could find an apartment did not have air conditioning. So that was an experience. Alright, I'll save the last bit of that for later. Alright, so what are we doing next? We are making a Manhattan. Let me move on to drink 2. Alright, and let me repeat that because I know I'm going to put a bookmark here. A Manhattan is drink number 2. And this is a very simple drink, actually, but it's got a long history to it, and it is one of the classics. So I thought I would go ahead and cover it. Let me move things down so I'm in frame here again. So all a Manhattan is whiskey, vermouth, and bitters. And this is where I remember that I did not actually get out my vermouth. So I will be back in just 1 second. Here, let me... Alright, nobody saw anything. Everyone act casual. Alright, sweet vermouth. So, let me talk about the history of this. It's Winter Nicole says that she can only imagine how bad I felt that her wife cries. She says we cry when it goes that long without rain too. Yeah, I am just not. I mean, this summer we had the longest spring I can remember. I mean, it didn't stop raining like solidly here until middle of July, and now and then it basically stopped raining until now. We had 1 day of rain last weekend, and I'm starting to get a little twitchy already. So, anyway, Manhattan. The provenance of Manhattan is sketchy at best, from what I can tell. It was almost probably invented at the Manhattan Club by someone in the 1870s, maybe 1880s, probably 1870s. Better people than I have done research into this and found that it was all over the place. Apparently there's some rumor that it was served by Winston Churchill's mother at his christening, but that's thoroughly debunked, but it's apparently a popular story around the Manhattan. Anyway, what we do know is that by the mid-1880s it was very popular, and there are 3 sort of classic recipes for it. One is pretty close to what we serve today. It just calls for vermouth, so I don't know if it was sweet vermouth or dry vermouth, and then some gum or simple syrup with that. So I suspect it was dry vermouth and then some simple syrup to sweeten it up a bit. But otherwise, it's pretty much what we have here. You can use any whiskey to make this. Most people prefer bourbon Manhattans, or at least I do. Rye Manhattans are also very popular. Bourbon tends to be smoother, and rye tends to be a little rougher around the edges. Both have great flavors. I've had both. They're great. What I'm using today is one of my favorite whiskeys, actually probably my very favorite whiskey. It's called Dry Fly, and it is port barrel finished wheat whiskey, which means it's got a little bit of that port flavor on the finish of it. I normally just sip this. It's one of the few whiskeys I will just sit there and sip and enjoy in an evening. But I have not been drinking that way in a while, and I thought this would make an amazing Manhattan. I have never actually had this as a Manhattan before. Now, again, you can use any whiskey you want. You can use, Jack Daniels or Jim Beam or what have you. But because there's not a lot to cover up the flavor. It's mostly whiskey in this drink. So it is very spirit forward. You're very much going to taste the quality of your whiskey in this. It's not the kind of thing where you're pouring, 3 gallons of fruit juice on top of it so you barely taste it. This one, you taste the whiskey. So it's worth breaking out the good stuff for. And you'll notice that the recipe for this, I just start with the booze because it's pretty much all booze. Normally I try and do the cheap parts first. Start with the fruit juices and the simple syrup and that kind of thing. But no, this is pretty much just booze. So might as well start at the beginning. All right. So, the other thing about this is that the ratio of whiskey to vermouth does change per person. So it's like a martini that way. Some people like a drier martini or a wetter martini. What that means is that basically you're adding more or less vermouth with it. Or, it is. I guess it is vermouth. But it's... Now I've just completely spaced on what the recipe for a martini is. That's how my day is going. Anyway, you change the ratio for more or less gin with that. And yes, gin is the proper spirit for a martini. I don't have any strong feelings about that, but that's the original. That's what it's named for. I don't like martinis. It's not my thing. But that's anyway. I digress. A Manhattan is in many ways a whiskey martini. So you can adjust the whiskey and vermouth ratios. I traditionally I've always made them as 3-part whiskey to 1-part vermouth. I'm thinking about changing that as my tastes have changed. Maybe down to like 2.5 parts whiskey, or maybe even down to 2. I'm going to experiment with that. But I think this is a nice, smooth, slightly sweet whiskey. If whiskey can said to be, slightly sweet. So I think I'm going to go 3 parts to 1. Figure out what you like and go from there. So, let me just measure this out. Now I will say also, as I mentioned earlier, this is all booze today. This is a very, very potent drink. Usually if I'm having one of these, if I'm having one of these, it's probably one of the, unless I'm like at a bar or something, it's probably one of the last things I'm going to drink that day, because it is so strong. Definitely it is a sipper. Be very, very careful with this. The Fireside 75 that I made earlier, also fairly strong, but not nearly as potent as this. Alright, so that's my 3 ounces of whiskey in there. And again, I did parts because it depends on the size of your glass and all of that. I know the size of my glasses, so this should be about right. This will, if you want to say 3 ounces instead of 3 parts, go ahead. And as a matter of fact, I probably wouldn't do like, say, 4.5 ounces of whiskey to 1.5 vermouth. That is a lot of booze. So that's over 3 shots of whiskey right there. So be very careful. Alright, and for vermouth, again, it's a sweet vermouth. I'm just using Gallo sweet vermouth. I should probably have something better, but this bottle of sweet vermouth has lasted me for many, many years. So I should probably, and I got it basically before I started upgrading my bar, so I think it might have just been what they had at the store that day. If you want to get something better, I certainly would not stop you. So 1 ounce of sweet vermouth in there. And then the last place to get a little interesting, so you can choose your whiskey. That will have a huge effect on things. The other thing, though, that's going to make a huge effect on things is the bitters you choose. So the 2 main kinds of bitters are Peychaud's bitters, which are used almost exclusively for, I think it's for Negronis and that sort of thing. You don't see those. You see those used for very specific kinds of drinks, but not for anything else. I have a bottle of them. I don't think I've ever actually used them. No, I've probably used them for something that called for it, but I don't use them very often. Then the other big type is Angostura bitters. That's pretty much the standard bitters. It's that little paper wrapped bottle, and it will last forever. There are apparently some drinks where you use like a 1/4 ounce or a 1/2 ounce of bitters in them. I saw a video on one last night, and I want to say it's it had some Caribbean name to it. It was a certain kind of sour. Anyway, but in general, you're only use a few dashes of them, so a bottle of Angostura will last you decades. There are, however, a lot of other interesting kinds of bitters out there. I use orange bitters for my old fashions. I have a few others. There was a delightful bar in downtown Bellevue near where I live called Lot 3. I loved that bar. It was the best place in the world as far as I was concerned. and they, on their happy hour menu, they'd have Manhattans, and they had an amazing collection of bitters in addition to all the good whiskeys and bourbons. And so I would go in there, get a big plate of chips and French onion dip, and then just order a Manhattan, and I'd ask the barman to just pick out an interesting bitters for it. And they would, and then after I tried it, they would tell me what it was. And I had some really interesting ones. The one, my favorite one, I've had this for a really long time, and here's that word again, but it's Bittermans, and I cannot pronounce the first word, but Emakuli, I believe. It's Emakuli Tiki Bitters. And it's just got a really nice flavor to it. They also make a burlesque bitters that is a little spicy for me, but they also have a mole bitters, which has chocolate and spices in it that is really good. There's just, if you go to any decent liquor store these days, you're going to find a ton of different kind of bitters. Pick one that sounds interesting to you and give it a try. I have a small collection. That's the problem, is that you don't use very many of them, so it starts taking up space fast. And they're not that expensive usually, and like I say, they last for a very long time. Yeah. Anyway, this is what I'm using for for this drink today. And because instead of a dasher where you just squirt it against the side there, it's got an eyedropper. So I'm going to use about 5 or 6 drops here. Actually 7. And I think that's roughly 2 dashes, but if someone can correct me if they think it's wrong. Yeah. It's where Nicole says anything more than a dash or 2 is a lot of bitters. And yeah, like I say, Greg from How to Drink did a whole episode sponsored by Angostura, of course, on big bitters drinks, where he was making drinks that had, like I say, an ounce and a half of bitters in it. And wow, I can only imagine. All right. So, 3 parts whiskey, 3 ounces of whiskey, 1 ounce of sweet vermouth, 2 dashes of bitters. Now, the other thing with a Manhattan and other drinks of this type is that you don't want to shake them. I know the Bond thing with martinis is shaken, not stirred. So, there are reasons why you don't want to do that. For one thing, it really waters down the drink. The way stirring it's going to water it down too. But if you shake, you're going to break off chunks of ice. You'll get that nice layer of little ice crystals floating in the top of your glass. You don't really want that with this kind of drink. The old story is that you would bruise the whiskey, or you bruise the gin or whatever. And that probably meant something at the time. I just know that this is a drink that you stir. So if you know anything better, I would be delighted to hear it. Put it in chat or put it in the comments. I'm happy to just say I don't want to bruise the whiskey. So I'm going to put some ice in here. I will be right back. And I'm using whole cubes. I did not do crushed ice in here this time. Because I don't want those little ice chips in there. And this, I'm just going to take a swizzle here that I've got and stir it around for a bit. You want this is a metal shaker, so I'm kind of waiting to see the outside get a little bit of frost on it. This is one of my favorite shakers, but unfortunately it does not make a really good seal, or at least not a good enough seal for shaking. So it is my go-to drink, or go-to shaker for basically making up stirred drinks and then straining off the ice. Alright. Got a little bit of frost forming on the outside there. And so I am now going to pour this off here. I'm going to kind of pull it a little bit over the glass just in case I do get a leak, but I don't think I will here. And then the last thing we need for this is a maraschino cherry. Now I'm going to be all fancy and show off and use one of my homemade maraschino cherries that I make every now and again. I actually have a batch in there. These are really boozy cherries. They're made with actual maraschino liqueur that's been boiled with a little bit of water and some vanilla bean and some sugar, and then they were originally Rainier cherries, so you get this nice yellow color. And I'm using my fingers here because I'm the only one who drinks these. My wife doesn't like them. Go figure. And I will maybe someday show you how to make these kinds of cherries, and if so, I will swear you to reserve the liqueur afterwards, because basically cherry juice and maraschino liqueur and sugar and vanilla beans is a delight. Alright, here then is the Manhattan. I will bring it over here. See if my back camera is still working. Yay, it is! So, you can see, I mean, it kind of just looks like a glass of whiskey with a cherry in the bottom. And that's, you know, it's kind of flavored whiskey at this point. But let's get to the flavor now. I mean, don't get me wrong, I think it's a very pretty drink and it's a very elegant drink. This is definitely one of those drinks that when you have it, you feel like an adult. You know, it's not it doesn't have, alright, so before I should be drinking this and telling you all about it, but I was at a Pride event last weekend, which I had a great time at, and I went to a happy hour across the street, and they had a drink called the Out and Proud, and I kid you not, it was royal purple in color, like jewel tone purple in color. Oh, hi Ska, good to see you out there. Anyway, and not only did it was it bright purple, but it had a strip of rainbow sour candy all through it, and all that. That did not feel like an adult drink. It felt like a really fun drink. It wasn't. I have comments about it, but it was a really fun drink, and that's great. But if you ever want to feel kind of elegant and like, you know, this feels like the kind of drink that you would drink wearing, you know, a evening gown or a tuxedo at a event where people were speaking in murmurs and that sort of thing. So, and it's where Nicole said that she liked the fade from red down to orange. Yeah, it is a lovely drink, and that's it. This is definitely a martini glass kind of drink. The Fireside 75 you can do either in a martini glass or a coupe glass. I tend to do it in a martini glass just because that's what I started doing it in and I got used to it, but a coupe or coupe glass would also work. Anyway, here we go. So, that is, I mean, you get hit with the whiskey flavors right up front, and there's no doubt that you're drinking alcohol there. There's nothing, you know, you get that alcohol hit, but the vermouth does a good job of knocking out that punch to the back of your taste buds that whiskey can often do, especially if you're having rye. It mellows it and gives it a little bit more sweetness than it would normally have to make things just that much smoother, that much nicer. The bitters come in and just give everything a bit of spice. I don't know what I mean. These bitters, it just says a tropical blend of cinnamon, allspice, and island spices that is known as our bitters. So yes, I can definitely taste some cinnamon in it, and I can definitely taste some allspice. Not the same way you get cinnamon on the Fireside 75 with all that cinnamon syrup in it, but you also get, like, I swear I can taste some nutmeg in there, and other things. And so that's why your choice of bitters is really going to be interesting in this. If you've never had it before, start with the standard bitters that have just gone out of my mind, even though I've been talking about them all night. Not Peychaud's, but the other ones. Anyway, just start with the standard bitters, and then branch out. Try something new. A lot of places have little sample sizes of their bitters that you might be able to try. That sort of thing. Or if you're going out, tell them to use unusual bitters if they have them, and see what they come up with. Also, hi Ogre, I'm glad to see you. Angostura, yes, that was the word I was looking for. Like I say, I've been talking about it all night in my brain. Anyway, hi Ogre, glad to see you could make it. Enjoy your dinner. Ogre says that that he's there but can't type because dinner, which I understand. It's 5 o'clock is usually our dinner time here, but it gets pushed back a little late on these nights because I've got drinking to do. So yeah, yeah, and this is like I say, this is a nice smooth whiskey. With a rye or even a bourbon, you're going to get, well, with a rye, definitely you're going to get some of that roughness along the tongue. It's going to be smoothed out from how it normally is, but the bourbons are usually, like I say, a bit smoother, so they're going to be more like this. But this just glides across the tongue. It is delightful. There's not much of the flavor of the alcohol that was on the cherry. When I get down to the bottom, I'm sure there'll be a little bit of that because it's sitting there with the cherry soaking in it. And if I sat here and talked for a lot longer, like I've been doing, you'll definitely that cherry flavor will start to infuse. But that cherry flavor has been sitting in that jar of liqueur for quite a while, and so I don't know. You do eventually get a little bit of that flavor as well, but right now, especially at the top, you're just getting good whiskey, spiced up with your bitters, mellowed out a little bit by that vermouth, and it's one of my favorite drinks. It's one of the drinks that my dad and I have always shared. We both really like these. Like I say, if you increase the amount of vermouth, you would definitely get a little sweeter drink. Even less of it would smooth out more rough edges. I think I am going to go down to like 2.5 to 1 in general, unless I'm using something like this, which again, I usually get 1 bottle of this a year at Christmas, and it has to last all year, so it is good stuff. For those out there who like Manhattans, do you have any bitters that you like to use? I've been using, I just kind of picked up this because the name sounded interesting, and it sounded like an interesting combination of flavors, and I thought it might put a neat spin on things. But are there others that you've tried that you like? Let me know what they are. I'd be happy to hear about them. And I don't know if you've heard, but there's a cat in the background. Let me see if I can tease the cat onto the camera here. Hold on. Oh, can I borrow you for a second?
Hello.
So this is the cat tax being paid. This is Lily. She's our little one. She is a terror. Don't let her fool you. She is 8 pounds, or actually not even quite 8 pounds of monster who terrorizes our 18-pound sweet girl, our other cat. So.
She's staring at me.
Yes,
why
I think.
are you letting her do this to me, Bubba?
I think she would like to go back to her mama.
Let's go ahead and put her on the ground.
All right. Anyway, and on that note, I think we're going to finish up here. So thank you all very much for joining. And thank you very much for joining. Remember, if you haven't already followed me here on Twitch, I appreciate it. Up to 53 followers here, which is amazing. Thank you all. I really appreciate it. Words cannot express how much I appreciate that. We're up to 20 followers on YouTube. That is fantastic. I really appreciate everyone following there, liking the videos. There's a link to my YouTube page. Right now, it's still a huge string of letters and numbers for the web address. So apparently I need 100 people to follow me there or subscribe there to get a decent name. To actually get to the point where you can earn money there, you need like 1,000 followers and 4,000 hours of content and stuff. So that's never going to happen. But here on Twitch, I really appreciate everyone being here and following and hanging out with me. This has been great. So I will see you in a couple of weeks. Bye. Yes.